I get to introduce our speaker today since it is Shital. So we're really excited to hear from Dr. Poudyal on some of the programs that he's done. He has, for this webinar, is going to go over four kind of do-it-yourself strategies to save water in the landscape. These are things that would apply if you are a homeowner, a landscaper, if you're a policymaker. It should give you some good resources and ideas that you can apply right away. So Dr. Poudyal is our Ornamental and Landscape Specialist at Utah State University. His research focuses on developing sustainable management practices for landscape and nursery plants with a strong emphasis on water conservation. He regularly works with the public and private stakeholders to promote efficient irrigation strategies and climate-smart landscaping solutions, which are some of the things he's going to talk about
Mhm.
today. So if you're ready, we'll have you share your screen and turn the
Okay.
time over to you.
Today, I'll be talking about four easy but also effective and practical approaches for landscape water conservation. And these all are things that you could easily do, not easily, I would say, but do it faster, relatively faster, and still get a significant savings on water in landscape. So, uh, getting started, why does conservation matter? Why do we need to conserve water? We all know that we get water from the snowmelt, right? We get water that from the snow that's then held in reservoirs, and then we get our drinking water, culinary water from those reservoirs, also our secondary water. So snowmelt, 95%, close to 95% of the water that we use in Utah is from the snowmelt that is held in reservoirs. And this image you see here, this picture here is created by the state of Utah and its state water plan, and it was created a while back. But then what this graph tells us that if we don't conserve water, if we don't save water, if we do what we're doing right now or what we were doing in around 2020s or 2021, then we are going to run out of reliable supply. Meaning your tap wouldn't run dry, but it would be a significant impact to restrict watering. We would see like a severe restriction for watering. So we don't want that. That is why with conservation and other effort, we can increase this. We can increase the time that we have our reliable supply. And this is also important because as the population of Utah is growing, and we are among the fastest growing state in the nation, and you see this from the Forbes magazine. It's number one best state to live in overall, by far, and that has been the way since multiple times. So people are moving to our state, to Utah, and we do want that because of the economy and the growth that brings with the population growth. But then we need water to have these people. Like increasing population needs increasing amount of water, and our snow melt or our snowfall is, to say the least, not consistent. And so we need to be very wise. And why do we talk about landscape irrigation in this context? Because landscape irrigation accounts for 65% of the water of a household water. So, and municipal and industrial water, which is usually treated and ready for drinking, 65% of that water goes to landscape irrigation. Now, there is opportunity to reduce that water. Dr. Kelly Cobb, who does a lot of water check program, she has found out that more than 50% of the landscape people or homeowners irrigate the lawn by more than 50%. So there is an opportunity to save, and that is why we are talking about this here. And I must say, this year I was talking with the state division facilities people this morning. It was a turf field day at Sewell here in Logan, and they were telling the water use has gone up because we have been so dry. June, July, and probably August are the driest year on record. I believe August is not done yet, but depending on what the weather forecast looks, it's going to be very dry. And then that's why our water use has gone up. But then there are ways to reduce the water in the landscape. Again, there are multiple ways, and people have been giving so many messaging, some of which takes a long time, some of which can be done immediately. I mean, there might be confusion among people to which ones to choose or which one to go for. So this webinar probably will tell you which one to focus. That is, I would say, the low-hanging fruit. So I will give out all my 4 approaches here. I hope you still are in the webinar, even though I tell you all these four approaches. Uh, because we'll explain those in the coming slides. The first one is smart irrigation controller, and this one's for BI. As an extension person, I do not recommend one brand over the other, but this is one of a kind. There are Ratio, there are Hunter, there is Skydrop, there are multiple irrigation brand or irrigation controller which are smart. They work based on evapotranspiration, which I will talk in later slides. But there are, so for the first approach would be switching to this, switching to smart irrigation controller. The second one would be conducting a water check or irrigation audit. I mean, and again, I'll talk about this in later slides, but then the smart irrigation controller, I think depending on your landscape, you could easily do within like 3, 4, 5 hours. Like if you have a huge multiple landscape, it might take long, but a homeowner could do it under 2 hours. It's not complicated. The water check, same thing. I mean, you could do a water check depending on how many zones you have for less than 6 hours. And then you can work on fixing it depending on how many heads you need to replace or fix it. It might take a while, but still, it's not going to take you an entire season, and you could see savings. The third one is nozzles or irrigation heads. We'll talk about this in later video. And then the fourth one is park strips. There was a program called Flip Your Strip, so I'll talk about that and how much water it can save. This one I think is the most time consuming of these all. It will take a while to rip out your turf and then put a new plants, but park strip is not a huge area, so it can be done relatively fast. These are the 4 approaches that I'll be talking about today. And let's take a dive into each one. So for the first approach, we need to understand the water need of a landscape, right? To understand the water need of a landscape, we need to know the weather of that area, which will tell us what is the evapotranspiration. How much evapotranspiration basically is telling us how much water is gone from the landscape, gone from the system. So based on the sun and heat and other like transpiration and things like that, how much water is gone from the landscape. The second is plant type. Now, the water gone is calculated based on a healthy turf grass, which is kept at like which is kept very nice, very healthy, in a very top-notch condition, and that is always highest. So evapotranspiration in those kind of turf is always highest. So we use that as a comparison, but depending on the plant type in the landscape, we don't need to apply all the water that is gone from that landscape. Not all plants need all the water back. Some plants are fine with less amount of water. So we also need to know the plant type. Evapotranspiration will tell you what is the potential water that is lost from a system. Plant will tell you how much you need to apply back. And area will basically tell you how big of your landscape is. So what should you irrigate based on your area? So if you have big area, you need more irrigation. If you have a smaller area, you need less irrigation. So water budget or water need of a landscape is directly dependent on weather, which is water loss, evapotranspiration. Second, plant type, which is what kind of plant you have, so that will determine how much to apply back. And third is area, how big of a landscape you have. So all these 3 things combined will tell you how much to irrigate. Now, look at this graph here. So this is the average evapotranspiration in Logan and Cedar City from 2016 to 2020. This is water loss from that area. Now, I've taken this from Utah Weather Climate Center website, and I downloaded it, created a graph. You can see how, hold on, what happened? Okay, you can see how this graph in Cedar City is higher compared to Logan. This will tell us there is more water lost in Cedar City versus in Logan. Now, what this will also tell us is we shouldn't have a same watering strategy for these two different places. There should be different. Now, let's move in deeper. Let's see. So, a manual irrigation controller, if your landscape has a manual irrigation controller, you probably start your irrigation in April, set it for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes every day. So this blue uh, rectangle here is how much you're watering in April. And it doesn't change, right? Until June, it doesn't change. You don't go and mess your manual controller multiple times. Maybe you do it once or you do it twice. You don't do it constantly every day or every 15 days, right? I mean, if you do it, kudos to you, and that would be very smart. But mostly people don't do it. So what is happening is, although evapotranspiration is going slowly, gradually up and gradually down like a bell curve, our water irrigation pattern is a rectangle, meaning we are over applying in April, like this area, and then as we move in May until in June, we are under applying or something like this. Now you see when you under apply, you see your plant being burned, or your turf is really dry, or your plants are wilting, and then you bump it to 20 minutes a day every day in June, and it's fine in June. But as we cool down, and this is for Shader City, as we cool down, nobody's going to change that controller because the plants are doing fine, but then we are overwatering here. So you see these areas where we are overwatering and underwatering maybe. So that is how a manual controller works, right? You go there, say 20 minutes a day for 2 months, and then you see the plants are dry. You go there, you say, okay, do it 30 minutes a day, something like that. And then that's constant. Now, this doesn't change depending on the rain, the wind, any factor. You don't go and play with it often. So that is not that is costing us more water than our landscape need. Now, a smart controller. What a smart controller does is it's usually connected to a Wi-Fi, and what it does, it will pull the weather data from that area. So say I have my house in Logan, I connect a smart controller to Wi-Fi, and then uh, it's connected to the cloud Wi-Fi, and then it takes the water from Utah Climate Center, weather data from Utah Climate Center, from private data centers, wherever, like it networks it. Each controller claims that they have multiple, numerous, even thousands of weather stations they are using. So what they do now, because they have the weather data, they will automatically adjust the watering. So if this is a curve, um, it can be 5G right now. It can be 5G. So these controllers are 5G these days. Uh, Previously it was 2G. Now this is the same graph for Shader City, and this is a smart irrigation controller. Now you see this, it's following the trend. Like you started in April, and then it goes up, and it follows that trend, and it comes down, and you turn it off around end of September, mid-September, depending on where you are, maybe October if you are in Shader City. This is when you turn it off. And you see this gap. This gap is because plant factor. This is not an actual image, but then not all plants need all water to be replenished. It should follow the trend, but depending on plant type, it should be lower. So it's following this trend. It is uh, tracking that water loss without your input. So a smart irrigation controller changes the schedule, maybe even every 2 weeks or every week or even every day sometimes, depending on what are your restriction, how many days you can water. Like if you have a restriction in water, like I live in North Logan, and in North Logan, you can only water 3 days a week. So in this controller, I tell like you can only water Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and that's when it'll water. Now, with this restriction, it will change like every day or every week or 3 times a week the recipe for watering, but you don't need to input it. And it can save anywhere from 25 to 70% water. And this has been, and I will show this in a while and talk about it. But then installing and programming, it's not complicated. I mean, it might take a while. You might need to connect to the Wi-Fi. You need to create an account. You need to put in your address. You need to put in your zone type, what kind of plant, things like that. And you need to do some wiring, very minimal, but it's all on our YouTube. If you go to CUL YouTube channel, you will see how you can program the app. You will see how you can replace an old controller to a new one, a smart one, and basically all the details. And not only mine, there are multiple videos of people doing it, from extension to non-extension to companies, industries. You'll find multiple videos. It's not complicated. And if it is, I am more than happy to help you on that. So you email me and I will tell you, hey, this is the source, and follow this. So you can email me. Also, how these controllers save water is, one, it will track the evapotranspiration, so it's already being smart and applying just enough or just needed water. Second, it will also delay watering if it finds a significant rainfall event or significant wind event. You can see in this picture here, uh, the spray or the rotor is not working fine because there is a big, huge wind. Uh, Now, if this happens, this smart controller are set to turn off or delay watering. Now you can override everything. You can override the rain delay, you can override the wind delay, everything. You can set it to your preference, but there is some settings that is doing this. And when I talk to these companies, talk to the Beehive people, talk to Ratio people, they tell me that the biggest water saving is by wind delay in Utah. It's not by rain delay, but it's by wind delay, because wind is going to blow off that water. So changing to a smart irrigation controller obviously is going to save water. Now, Dr. Kelly Cobb, who works with turf in at USU, did some research on 4 different brand of controller: Hunter, Skydrop, Ratio, and Beehive. Now, what she found is Skydrop, or Hello Smart sprinkler system, applied least amount of water over 2 years of study, followed by Hunter and Orbit, and then Ratio. Now, and what we found interesting is you could save up to 70% of water. And if you need this documentation, or if you need a report for this, I'm more than happy to send it to you. But it can save anywhere from 25 to 70, depending on how we're watering. So that is of huge possibility for water savings just there. Now, because the time this was done like 6-7 years before, and we are also replicating a similar study with, you can see in this picture, we use 3 Hunter, 3 Orbit, 3 Ratio. We don't use Beehive because Orbit and Beehive use same software. They are watering same. So we are using these 3 brands, and now the dynamics from what we are seeing is a little different on water conservation, but still we do see a lot of savings. And we're also trying to use it for container production, and I think we have successfully tested it for container production. And in container production, it was saving more than 70% of water. So in landscape, in container, these all things are working fine. So I think it's a good idea to adopt this. And the good thing is, if you are a homeowner, you can apply for rebate through Utah Water Savers, and you get $100. You could buy a controller for $150, even $100. 8-zone controller, you can buy it for $100 and get $100 as a rebate. So I think, and this rebate will not last forever, right? There is a cycle, and it'll end. So I think it's best to replace existing controller with a smart irrigation controller if you have, and that's a low hanging fruit in a landscape water conservation. That's the first one. Second one, I would say, is irrigation auditing, or basically what we call it as a water check. Now, what we do, let me get some water here. On irrigation auditing, our water check, what we do, or what you need to do, is run the irrigation, see the watering, and make some adjustment. It's as simple as that, like site inspection. So what you do during the water check or irrigation audit is turn on your zone one by one, not obviously all at once, right? You turn your one zone, and then look how the systems are functioning. And I will tell you, like 70% of the time, we do see some kind of problems. Sometimes it's blockage, sometimes the nozzle's not rotating, sometimes it's like some landscaper put a spray head and a MSMT, multi-stream, multi-trajectory nozzle in the same hydrozone or in the same zone that is watering. Sometimes the head are damaged. And if you can, I would also recommend you to check the water pressure when the system is running. Now, this is how you can check it. This is a check flow valve, and there is probably you have seen this somewhere in your irrigation system. Some installer do like to install this, some not. If you have a backflow preventer, it will probably have one. It's a good idea to check this and check the water pressure. Like if your zone is a spray, like a fan spray, it should be somewhere close to 30 to 40. If your zone is a rotor, it can be somewhere from 45 to 80 or even 90. Depending on your heads, you have multiple pressure requirements, right? So it's always good idea to check the pressure, and also check for damaged head and any kind of blockage. Like sometimes there's a tree which was tiny when you had a landscape, now it's big, and the trunk of the tree is blocking the irrigation on the other side, and you see the grass being dried. Now you need to come up with a creative way to add a nozzle or something like that, so you can water evenly and then be done in a short time. So yeah, so just think about turn on a John, walk around, look for the problem, blockage, a mixed head, damaged head, water pressure. The other thing that we see, I mean, the biggest issue that we find during irrigation audit or water check is sunken or tilted head. When you install a head, the soil is like you install it at certain height, right? And it keeps on watering, and then it keeps on pooling in that area. So the soil goes down, it slowly goes down because of the gravity. And as you can see in this picture, this is a sunken head, right? What do? You lift it up. You can be creative, dig it out, put some kind of some stones or something underneath, some soil, anything like that, and then lift it up. Or sometimes it's the tilted head, like the head is tilting and you are spraying up in the air instead of in the grass. Or sometimes it's down and it's not getting that radius. So you see a dry spot. So sunken or tilted head, it's the most common issue that lowers irrigation efficiency. So just walk around, look for these heads, some sunken or tilted head, and fix those. Now, also overspray or underspray, right? Like look at this picture here. So probably this head should be a little upward, like a little this side. So it's facing towards the sky a little bit more, because this is a slope area, and in the slope area, if you have this level and down, then you are not irrigating enough area. So this is multi-stream, multi-trajectory nozzle, and it's irrigating this area. But then the problem is it's not going where it should. The problem might be the tilted hair, or you might need to fix the angle. You might also need to pull up. The other problem that you see here is a rotator. So a rotor. So the multi-stream, multi-trajectory is mixed with a rotor, which is not ideal. You because they have this is throwing water more, and I'll talk about it, and this is throwing less water. So you need to irrigate longer in this versus you might have to irrigate shorter in this, depending on, again, depending on your pressure and other things. So it's ideal to keep same type of head. So if you could replace this head with a multi-spring MSMT, it's good. But if you can't, I mean, in this video we are talking about the low-hanging fruit. So the best one here right now for now would be fixing the angle of this head, lifting it a little up, and then eventually you would replace this with multi-spring, multi-trajectory nozzles. So this is under spraying. This might be over spraying. This is, you see all the sidewalks are wet, so you might need to fix the angle for this rotor not going on the roadways, and so this kind of issue, right? You just, and to stop the water from going to the roadway, you just twist it down, change the angle a little bit. It's like 10 seconds, less than 5 minutes. I would say 10 seconds, but less than 5 minutes, and this would fix irrigation inefficiencies here. So the most common issue to lower irrigation efficiency is also overspray or underspray, and this is how you fix it. And you see this, I pulled this from Reddit, but then this also might be common. So you sometimes feel like your zone 2 and zone 3 are at full pressure, but zone 5 is not working fine. The pressure is low. That might be because you have a leak in the valve. So open your manifold, see if all, and run the zones and see if there is water leaks in there. And if there's water leaks, you need to fix it, right? Now, previously when I said the smart controller, you can save water from 20 to 70%, right? Now here, when we do the water check, irrigation audit, according to Dr. Kelly Cope, you could get 8 to 10% average water saving. According to Dr. Al K. Jackson, and this was a research in 2023, Dr. Kelly's research is recent. Dr. Al K. Jackson, who was also with USU, the average saving was 13.8% in 2023. So just by fixing these small issues, you can save this much water on an average. So it's not less. It's not like nothing. Yeah, it's significant. Now, the other thing that you could do is a distribution uniformity test. And again, if you Google USU DU distribution uniformity test, you will get forms, you will get things like that. I'm planning to build an online calculator and put in there. But then what you do the distribution uniformity test to see if your all the areas in the same irrigation zone or hydro zone are watering uniformly. And by this DU, you will be able to find out if one area of the zone is receiving more water than the other area of the zone. So before you do a DU, you fix all those issues that I told you before, then you do DU. Now do it for each zone, lay the cup in square or rectangular pattern. So to do the DU, you will need a cup like this, and you can buy it from Amazon, you can buy it from CUL website, anywhere. This is a cup that is graded. So it will have inches or millimeters in here, depending on which one you like to use. So what you do is you need to lay down the cup in a rectangle or a square pattern in a zone. So in this zone, this is how it's laid out. And obviously we'll add more cups in this line and in this line, and it will be a square grid or a rectangle grid. When you have these cups, always make sure you have multiples of 4 so that it's easier for calculation, and have more than 16. A smaller zone you can have less, but ideally more than 16 for bigger zone. So, and then you can do it for each zone. So if you're doing 8 zone, you can still reuse the same cups, right? Now what you do is lay out the cups and make sure it's like same labeled. It's not like not one is tilted and one's not tilted. It doesn't work like that. Make sure all are well placed. Turn on the irrigation. Now turn on the irrigation enough so that you can see the water in each cup, right? So you need to be able to measure that water. So you run the irrigation until you receive a measurable depth, and don't run it so that it overflows. So between, you can measure it, and between overflowing of cup, you run it. So we would say like 10 to 20 minutes, you run it, but that can change depending on what kind of heads you have. In a spray head, fan spray, you run it lower. If it's MSMT, you run it a little higher, longer. Stop the irrigation and record the water on each cup. So you number the cup 1 to whatever you have, 24, you have 28, you have 16, 1 to 16, and then you record the water in each cup. Write it down. Now what you need to do is arrange the values of water in ascending order. Now maybe cups 1 has 20 ml or 1 inch, and then cup 3 has 1.5 inch, cup 2 has 4 inch. Now you would put it in the ascending order. So you put 1 inch, 3 inch, and 4 inch ascendingly. You arrange that value in ascending order. Now what you do is you calculate the average of lowest quartile. Now if you have 16 cup, your lowest quartile, meaning 4, would be 16 divided by 4 would be 4. So you would take the lowest 4, that is why you are arranging them in ascending order. So take the first 4, which are arranged in ascending order, find out the average, divide it by average of total cups, including those 4. Now, if you have 24, you divide 24 by 4, which is, 6. So you take the lowest 6 average and you divide it by average of all the cups. And that way you get your distribution uniformity. Now, if you want that in percentage, it's between 0 and 1. So you multiply that by 100 and you get percent of distribution uniformity. So that's how you get the distribution uniformity value. And if your distribution uniformity is less than 0.7, then or 70, then you need to check it for issues. You need to check it for other issues. Usually, if you fix everything, if you have similar heads, like if you have a rotor and an MS-70, then obviously your distribution uniformity will be way off. So you need to make sure you replace those heads because you know that's the problem. But if you fix all the problems, your distribution uniformity will usually be higher than 70% or 0.7. That is the second thing, right? You can save water. Smart irrigation controllers see that 20 to 70%. The water check, you can go from 10, 15, like 13 or 14 to 8, 8 to 14. So MSMT is multi-spring, multi-trajectory, and I will talk about that in this one. So the third one is using proper irrigation head. Now, why do you need to use proper irrigation head? Because depending on your soil type and plant type, not all soil can take in the same amount of water. As you can see in this image here, if in a sandy soil, the aggregates are big, so is the holes. So when you irrigate, the water can go in fast. It'll go in fast. But then these holes are so big that it will not be holded there. It will drain because of the gravity, because the holes are too big. If you have a silt or sand, the aggregate are a little smaller than clay or loamy sand. This would also be, you could also call it it would be similar for a loam also. If you have a loam sand, the holes are smaller than sand but bigger than clay. So the water will go there at medium rate and it'll stay there a little longer. So the infiltration rate is good, the holding rate is good, and the gravitational pulling will be slowed. Now in clay, if you have a complete clay soil, the water will go in very slower because the holes, like the pores, the aggregate are very small, so the pores are very small, so water is going in very slowly. So if we apply a ton of water at one time, it will probably run off. But then because the pores are so small, it can hold the water more tightly, so water can remain in there for a longer time. So if you have sandy soil, the idea is you water more frequently, but you only water a little bit so the plant can use it. If you have a loam soil, you can be fine with medium watering. But if you have a clay soil, you need to water really slowly, and for a long time. So it's going in slowly, and you can be infrequent. You can hold for 3-4 days if you have a clay soil. So that is the dynamics of the soil, right? So if you understand your soil type, your plant type, then you can decide on what is your precipitation rate, how fast is your nozzle applying water, and should I change it? Now, if you have a clay soil, look at the infiltration rate. It's 0.1 to 0.2 inches per hour. Loam soil, 0.5 to 1. Sandy soil, you can go from 1 to 2 inches per hour. So this is how fast the soil can take it. But sandy soil can't hold, and clay soil can hold the longest. So that is what will tell you how fast or frequently you need to water. Now, these are the spray head. This is the fan spray. This is applying a fan of water. See, it's not moving, nothing. You can change the arc, but then it's just applying the water constantly at a faster pace. Now, so it has a very high infiltration rate, 1 to 2.5 inches per hour. Now, when you compare it with the infiltration rate, it may even exceed sandy soil. So if you are using this, you need to follow it exceed the infiltration rate of most soil. So you follow soak and cycle. So if the recommendation is to apply for 10 minutes, you apply for 4 minutes, you let it soak in for 10 minutes, and then you apply 4 minutes again, you let it soak in, and then you apply for 2 minutes. And that'll make you 10 minutes. Do not continuously apply water with these kind of nozzle. Now, it may be used in sandy soil or for small areas. If you have a huge radius, these are usually not very, like it doesn't go too far. It may, but usually not. And not ideal for slope or clay soil, right? If slope, the water runs down fast. If you're applying too much water, it'll run down. clay soil, it's not infiltrating as fast. So it's not very ideal for those. The likelihood for misting, if used at same pressure with rotor, is very high. 30 to 40 psi is what these fan nozzle need. And usually if you have a rotor or if you need a landscape, it's common to see 65 to 100 psi. So if you have those problems, it can be retrofitted with MSMT or multi-spring, multi-trajectory nozzle, or you can have a pressure regulated pop-up head. So a pressure regulated pop-up head would be a pressure regulator inside this. So even your pressure is fixed 60, 70, it'll still maintain that 30 to 40 psi, and you'll not like it'll not be a lot of mistake. Look at this data from June 2021 study in Washington State Liquor Control Board Division Center. This was they were studying to see the distribution uniformity and other factors. So when they used the spray nozzle, runtime was 90 minutes, and the wind drift. Look at this, 3.6 gallon. MSMT, they ran it for 30 minutes, and the wind drift was only 0.343 gallons. So the average wind was 2 here, it was 1.5, a little less here, but then still there is a lot of water savings. There's less effect of wind, right? So even spray here, the precipitation rate of 15 feet spray was 1.64. Distribution uniformity was way down, 34%. Now they replaced that with MSMT nozzles, and which was again 15 feet, and then they'll check the precipitation rate. It was way down, 0.5, which is within that range, and the distribution uniformity was way higher. They didn't do anything else. They just changed the one head to other head. So see, this is not difficult, right? And you could easily change it. So this is a rotator or MSMT, and this is this head. You just rotate it, remove the old spray nozzles. You need to match the radius, right? If you have this is probably too small, like 4 feet. But then if you have this as 8 feet or 15 or 14 feet, you also buy the same one for MP. And then you remove this, you just screw this in, adjust arc, and flush the system and test it, right? And then you get it done. So somebody was asking what's MSMT. So this is MSMT. See, it's multi-string, it has multi-streams, and it's multi-trajectory, means it's rotating like this. So like this, see, it's multi-stream. And probably this is a sunken head, so you need to fix it in this picture, but it's something like this. So multi-stream, it's better because it has larger droplet and it has higher efficiency compared to spray nozzles, because there is soak-in cycle built in, right? When you irrigate here, this area is having that gap or having a chance to infiltrate that water. So, uh, so there is the time span between the same area receiving this strand and this strand. So it is letting the water infiltrate more nicely. It's also applying at lower precipitation rate. It's less prone to misting because of the big water droplets. It has lower infiltration rate. Sorry, not the infiltration rate, but it's lower precipitation rate of 0.4 to 0. Inch per hour. But if you're using secondary water, that's usually not good. You may use rotators because these are also prone to clogging. Because they have small orifice or smaller holes, they can be prone to clogging. Now, so these are the benefit of this how a multi-spring, multi-trajectory works. And this is a rotor, right? It sends in one strand of water for a very long distance and rotates. So again, the precipitation is less than the spray, but usually a huge strand of water. So it's the precipitation rate may be more than MSMT, but it depends. It depends on your brand. It depends on how you tweak it. It's ideal for very large landscape because it can have a very long radius of throw. It has a single strand of water, which may be like it's a single strand. So there's a wind gust in a canyon. If that water blows a little bit for even 2 seconds, that zone is not receiving water, right? So it's not fast. It will take a long time for that water to rotate and come back. So if you have wind gust, then you need to understand that you might have some problem with rotor, not always. It has higher precipitation rate of 0.5 to 0.15, can cause runoff on slopes because, again, depending on your runtime and depending on your irrigation head. It needs high pressure, 45 to 100 psi, to function properly. It's less prone to clogging. And these are the options that can't be easily retrofitted. Like the spray can be easily retrofitted with MSMT, but this rotor is not easy. You need to change the entire unit, which is not complicated, but it's not also very easy. Now, this is a study that I liked. It was just done in 2024, and you can search like Spinelli et al. 2024. What they did is they compared 10 different heads from this is MSMT Hunter MP 2000, Karen, Rainbird, Toro, Hunter, Nelson, Rainbird. These are multiples. Some are rotors, some are MSMT, and some are like wobblers. But what they saw was they checked the distribution uniformity, and MP 2000 was at the highest, right? But then you see this gradually going down because the wind speed is increasing. This is the wind speed on the bottom. So if there's a lot of wind, the distribution uniformity will go down. But then still it's higher than Toro, right? This second one. Now, so, but then this Toro or Toro PRNF, it's least affected by the wind. So if you have a lot of wind, maybe consider this. Now, I brought this in here. I wouldn't have time to explain all this, but if you're interested, it's available freely. If you search this and look at it, you will find out. But what's telling is as the wind speed increases, the distribution uniformity will go down on most of the nozzles. Now, this is about the nozzles, right? This is how you can save water with the nozzles. Just by changing the nozzles, you can see the here the the wind drift is really lower, the distribution uniformity is increased. So there's not a constant number on this, but you can still save water or be more efficient in irrigation with this. Final one, maybe I'll take a little more time, but it is efficient. Like it's a park stripe conversion. Park strip, you all know park strip, right? It's that area where your landscape end and your road doesn't start. So it's usually 4 feet wide. It's a long strand. The research has shown that it can't be water efficiently. Park strip of less than 8 feet is usually not functional space, right? Nobody goes there to play, or it's not functional, and it's also very difficult to irrigate. So, case study in Las Vegas has shown that if you change the park strip from lawn to something else, and you change the irrigation to drip or something else, they have shown to save 18% water on an average. According to Alliance for Water Efficiency, AWE, changing or converting park strip would save, say, 11 to 76 gallon per square foot water annually after replacing turf, right? Again, turf has its importance and its use, but park strip where you can't water efficiently is not where it should be. And there are a lot of now, say you have a lawn in the park strip where you're wasting a ton of water compared to the landscape. Now you want to change it. You want to grow different other plants. You can buy a drip conversion kit. You don't need to change the entire system. So this is a head where pop-up would come in, or any kind of rotor or something like that would come in. What you do is you can buy cloggers, you can close the heads that you don't want to use, pop-up heads, and you can put in these drip conversion kits on the one that you would like to use. And when you do this, make sure you change your irrigation to a drip type in your controller. I can't emphasize this enough. It's not the plants or landscape that waste water. It's us humans. If we are changing the landscape, we need to tell the system that it's changed, so water less. We can have turf and save water. Just tell that don't water it as much as it is and let the turf go on drought. Turf is the plant that can tolerate the maximum drought, right? If when it comes to priority of watering in drought, the trees should be first, and then the second would be shrubs and perennials, and the last one would be turf because they are so resilient. So you can buy a drip conversion kit, and again, I don't have a brand that I recommend myself, but there are multiple in the market which work very good. You can use anything. But one thing that I would like to tell you is when we convert any kind of landscape, we need to make sure our trees receive water. You need to make sure we have water for trees because trees takes like 15, 20, 25, 30 years to grow. They're huge ecological benefit. We don't want this to die. So make sure we have trees that receive water, right? So that's I can't emphasize it enough. Uh, so park strip, this is in one of my neighbor. They still has a pop-up, but then I think you can go way down. Instead of telling it a turf, you can tell these are the time or any kind of ground cover. So instead of watering every 2 days or 3 days, you'll water maybe twice a week. And it will water for shorter duration and the plants will still look beautiful, right? I see such a nice color here. This is a water-wise landscape, Brugama grass, and you can have other plants and have drip irrigation, or even if you have overhead irrigation, change the plant type in your controller. Tell them that you have a low water use grass, and your watering would be saved. So I'm telling you, it's we using more water. It's not the plant using more water. This is a nice park strip that is again with the grasses and daffodils and other plants. Again, this is nice. You can have these kind of grasses. It looks beautiful, right? In the park strip, you don't have to have grasses and keep irrigating them inefficiently. This is another from Localscape, I think. These are all from Localscapes. If you go to localscapes.com, you can find out multiple ideas and ways on how you can change your park strips. This is beautiful, right? I mean, I like it and uses less water. Also, Cynthia B and people from Utah Gob or Utah Waterways has come up with a new app called Utah Plant Selector. If you go to internet and type Utah plant selector, you can find a website which will tell you, let me see, look at this, what kind of plant you want. See, and if you click it, what kind of plant you want, these are the plants, right? These are the plants. You can add this plant to the cart. You can change the plant, right? You don't like this combo, you can go click one, and all these are water-wise. Most of these are water-wise plant. Add to the shopping list, and then it'll be in your shopping list. Choose the second plant. Like it's like depending on the type you want, it's a grass, it's a foliage, and a flower. But again, there are multiple options. There is numerous options. Now you can go click it, change it, change the plant type. You don't like the combination, you can change it and then add those plant to the cart. And from the card, it will take you to the local nursery that is close to your your zip code, and it'll give you the option to buy. You can also, there's also option to zoom in, look from top, look from side, look from far, look from near. You can also change the bias, like keep the plant farther, keep the plant closer, a lot of different options. So I would encourage you, if you are doing a park strip or conversion any kind, I would encourage you to use that plant selector app. It's really a cool tool that these people came up with. You could see the type of plant, you could put it in the cart and also buy it. So thanks to our friends for doing this. uh, and also turf trade, right? Now, one thing that I'll tell, like when we remove turf, it's not without consequences. And that is why when we did in turf removal program, they ask you to plant something else. They don't ask you to put a mulch or stone mulch, right? They want the plants. But still, turf, research has shown that the temperature in the turf area is always regulated. It's always close to 100 in any, like even outside is 115, the turf would still be around 100, 102, 105. Also, it has a lot of other ecological benefit. Temperature is the big one, but soil, ecosystem, water cycle, things like that. So, um, so again, it depends on your choice and it depends on what you want in there. But if you still want turf, there are ways to use low water use turf. If you go to SLC Turf Trade Program, if you're in that area, they will provide you with the low water use turf seeds, which you can replant. Replanting is easy. I mean, you can just like in the fall, you kill the grass with the glyphosate or some kind of herbicide. And there is a process. It takes a while, but you can do it in the fall. You spray the seed, you overspray, you don't dig anything out. And then next fall, the low water use turf would kick up. And again, this might be a class for another time, but There is this. Also, if you can't, if you're not in Salt Lake City, these Lowe's have some like low water use turf available. This Performance Max, which is sun and shade, or tall fescue grass mix. There are multiple websites. So if you go to USU low water use turf, you can find it. So and if you replace the turf with water-wise turf in Park Strip or anywhere else, there is rebate in most of the places. If you go to Utah Water Savers, up to $3, somewhere higher, somewhere lower, but then you need to replace it with a live, I mean, for the removal, you need to have a live grass and well-maintained grass. You can say, I have a hard escape, so I'll have something else and get money. um, In-person or visual inspection is a must before doing the replacement, and you'll get the rebate after the replacement is complete. Now, again, saving trees after turf removal is crucial. If you are doing that, if you have trees in that area, they are adapted to that climate. So make sure the tree is saved. And for this, we have another fact sheet. We USU like to do fact sheets. So if you want to know anything, just type in anything that you want and USU extension, probably it will have that fact sheet. So preserving trees during and after lawn removal, this is a fact sheet and it'll tell you how you can take care of your trees, which is very crucial. And with all that, I think it's close to 3. So again, each smart controller, each efficient nozzle, I mean, if you add all those up, you might come more than 100%. It doesn't work like that, but each thing add up. It's a smart controller you use. If it's each efficient nozzle, each park strip conversion, each strip irrigation, native plants, they all add up. And each of us is a drop. One landscape is a drop, but working together, we can make a huge impact and probably reduce our landscape water use. With that, if you have any other questions, that's my email address, and that's me in that was Cedar City Water Festival. I think Ben was with me there. But yeah, with that, yeah, that's my email. Ben, I'm more than happy to take in questions.
Okay, so we have a couple. We have one question. So if you have any questions, if you want to stick them in the Q&A, I'll try and get to those first. And there's a couple that were asked through the chat as well, I'll get to. But the one in the Q&A was from Rick early in the presentation. Secondary water meters have been mandated in Utah and are being installed. The data shows that said users use too much water, what is the best way to educate the public on their water use and how to convince them to change? Any thoughts on that?
So might be best answered by Joanna, I think one of our human behavior expert, but I have been in her talk. So I think one of the best way is to see your neighbor. If your neighbor, and I like how my water bill or electrical bill says you are like on an average, or you are using more than average, less than average. So if we see that, if we see we are an average or we are using more than average, that will tell us, oh my God, all of everyone are doing their part, and me, am I missing out? So that might bring in uh, that sense of adoption. The other thing is, like, if I have a smart controller and my lawn still look okay, and if somebody else is watering forever, then they might think that, like, wow, he's doing that and his lawn seems fine. Why am I doing this? So I think human behavioral perspective is best changed by demonstration and examples. But then, being said that, I think education is also must. Not all people know that our landscape use 65% of water. So just telling them, hey, it's our landscape that's using a significant portion of water. And if we conserve that water, we can directly benefit our drinking water supply. That, I think, that would help.
Okay, all right. So a couple questions is in the chat. Um, One, some of it's kind of your opinion. Is a Hunter MP rotor more efficient compared to some other ones? And I know looking at the wind data that you shared, Hunter, I think, was one of the top ones.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I said, we would like to show research, so that's why I knew I would have that question. So I pulled up that paper there. If you want it, and this will be posted on YouTube, so I'll have everything in there, so you can have a look at that paper and see there are multiple. Even some hunters do well than other hunter brands. So even among hunter, it does better. Smart controller, same thing. In some of my research, ratio is doing well, and some hunter is doing well. So it depends, and we can point you to the right research.
Okay, and another question early on in the presentation. You mentioned MSMT. They were just wondering what that stood for.
Oh yeah, I think I answered that during my presentation. So it's multi-stream, multi-trajectory. You have seen those nozzles that rotate and have multiple streams. So those are multi-stream, multi-trajectory nozzles.
They're kind of like the finger ones people say.
Yes, like the
It
finger ones
rotates
which
around the
move.
fingers come
Yeah,
out.
yes.
Okay. Would you say that rotary nozzles are more efficient than a rotor?
I might have to incline toward yes, but it depends on your use. So what's your soil type? What's your slope? If you're in a slope, I think MSMT is going to do a great job compared to rotors. But if your landscape is so big that MSMT doesn't have that throw, then the rotors might work well for you. Again, if you're using secondary water which is not filtered, MSMT might be prone to clogging, so you might need to clear that out versus rotor, which is a little better in clogging. So it depends, I think, on what you are planning to use it on.
Okay, and the last one, since we're at three, this goes back to your reference to smart controllers.
Mhm.
Does the Wi-Fi need to be a 2.4G or 5G to connect to the controllers? Mark Guthrie mentioned most are at 2.4. Is that
So it used to be 2.4, but I think there is one that has five. I think mine, the one that I have, which is the most recent Beehive brand, I think it's five. So I don't need to change anything. If it's 2.4, most of the router throw out five these days. So I think the industry is changing and they are coming with five. But a little older one, I would say you might need to play with a little bit on your Wi-Fi, but it shouldn't be a big deal.
all that I could catch? So,
Okay, hopefully you all like this webinar. And next month we'll come with something new. Yeah,
okay,
thanks,
awesome. Thank
man.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.